Passing a farm to the next generation is quite the undertaking and can be much more complicated than a simple will. Clayton Baumgarth has this report on the importance of succession planning on the farm.
Here at Sieb Farms in Poseyville, Indiana, all you hear is the rustling of corn stalks in the breeze. For this family, it's a period of calm before harvest starts. Last year, the Siebs took on extra work, completing a complicated planning process for the future of the farm.
If it's all in one person's name, whatever, and then something happens to that person, then there's a scramble to try to get everything covered. And we don't want that. We wanted to have everything with transition and allow for the nephews to work their way into the farm.
The Sieb farm has been in the family for over 100 years. It was established in 1898 by Mark's great-great-grandmother. She handed it down to her son, who handed it to his son, and then eventually to Mark and Wayne's parents. Passing a farm to the next generation can be quite the undertaking, much more complicated than a simple will. The Siebs had to share detailed financial records, family history, and goals with a third-party business that specializes in succession planning.
It was a little scary, but we finally sat down, talked together. It's like, if we're going to do this, we need to let them in like they're part of the family. We need to be 100% honest with them. We basically need to tell them everything about us. I mean everything, so they can put together the best thing possible. So when they're done, it's like we can finally sleep better at night.
Succession planning is important to every business, but it isn't always done in rural areas. Carl Sieb, the on-paper manager of the farm, says it can be tough work for farmers on top of existing responsibilities.
I think for a lot of people I talk to, at least, the general assumption is, yeah, we need to do it, but we just haven't started.
Much is at stake if the planning isn't done. Owners may be left scrambling to find a buyer for all their assets if their kids don't want to be involved in the farm. They might have to lease out the land to be worked by someone else, eating away at take-home income. The hurdle of starting a farm today is also a challenge.
You can't start from nothing in being in farming. It's too much of an investment. It's a high dollar to get started. When you've got a combine, it's $500,000, and that only does harvesting, period. You can't take it to town and take the family to church in. You can't do anything with that.
Specialized help is available. Art Littlefield and Dennis Hanks are estate planning specialists at Lincoln Financial Advisors. They focus solely on agribusiness services. They both covered the Sieb succession planning process. They say that the process looks straightforward on paper, but rarely turns out that way. Farms are typically family-owned businesses, and anyone in a family knows that can bring disagreement.
Tends to be a lot of conflict, lack of communication in families that, as a result, cause the succession planning to be difficult.
Even a smoother sailing deal is time-consuming, and every hour spent working on this is an hour spent not working on the farm. That can be especially harmful to smaller farms that may not have the workforce needed to handle everything simultaneously.
Many of the issues that we need to address include planting and harvest, that we only have a limited window that farm families will be available.
The price of this specialized service is determined by the size of the farm and whether complications arise during the process. The Sieb farm is one of many that make up a rich tapestry of family agricultural legacies throughout Indiana. The State Department of Agriculture recognizes farms that have been in one family for at least 100 years. These accolades, or Hoosier Homestead Awards, are a way for the state to underline the importance of family-run agriculture.
What I have found in Indiana is our farmers, they want to take care of the land. They want to do the right thing when it comes to things like conservation and making sure that land is available for somebody to have in the future.
For farmers that don't plan for succession, they can leave it to a family member, but how can they ensure it'll continue to be run?
There's also a component of, do we want to have somebody that manages the farm? Is that a family member? Is it somebody else? And the succession of how we make sure this is a continuing entity and a continuing farm, what does that look like?
For Kettler, this passing of the torch presents an opportunity to involve a younger generation in agriculture.
What I appreciate about current and younger generations is they tend to have a pretty entrepreneurial mindset. So sometimes they'll come back and say, okay, this farm, we used to raise crops, we used to raise livestock. I'm going to find a way to get them back involved in that business. I appreciate that some people want to continue to that kind of a lifestyle.
As one generation hands over the reins to another, growing pains will emerge.
I guess the biggest thing I can say is that change can be scary, but don't be afraid of it because it could possibly be a good thing.
So what convinced the nephews to go through all this trouble and continue working for the farm?
It's in your blood. I feel like more than anything, you know, even the days you don't like doing it, you find a reason that you want to keep doing it. I think for me, more than anything, looking at the legacy that's already here and wanting to say that I've been able to help continue, it's important to me.
For Indiana News Desk, I'm Clayton Baumgarth.
Family farms make up around 96% of the farms in Indiana, with the average farm size at 264 acres.